It's just a public service announcement.
It isn't by size that you win or you fail. Be the best of whatever you are.
No. Try not. Do. Or do not. There is no try.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Ho. H to the OV.
Welcome to the Next Play podcast series brought to you by Game Plan. My name is Vin McCaffrey, and today I'm joined by Dave Busshart of the Red Ventures college recruiting team. RV is a technology company headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina, with locations around the U.S. In this session, Dave talks about the massive growth Red Ventures has seen over the past several years, its mission, its amazing leadership team. We focus in particular on why student athletes have been and continue to be such a great fit for this fast-paced, high-achievement culture of RV. We even weave in a bit of a discussion around the basketball court that sits in the middle of their campus right out in Charlotte. It's a great opportunity to learn more about one of the fastest growing companies in the country in Red Ventures. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Let's jump in. Thanks. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Game Plan's podcast series, Next Play. Today, we are thrilled to have David Busshart. Dave's a college recruiter and hiring manager for Red Ventures, one of Game Plan's newest college employment customers who we're just thrilled to work with. Charlotte located, growing like a weed. Thrilled to learn more about Red Ventures and spend some time with Dave today. So Dave, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So let's get into it. Tell me first a little bit about Red Ventures. Who are these guys?
Yeah, we get that quite a bit actually, and not surprisingly at all. Red Ventures is actually, believe it or not, the country's largest technology-enabled platform for sales and growth, sales and marketing growth anyway. And so what we do is really all on the back end, but we have what we call partners. We like to refer to all of the companies that we work with as partners as opposed to clients or anything like that, because really at the end of the day, it is a true partnership. We're working in tandem with them to kind of grow their sales and presence across different platforms. So Red Ventures, speaking of that, works in several different industries like home services, which would include a lot of telecommunications, such as DirecTV, Verizon, AT&T, things of that nature, energy, financial services, insurance, and software as well. And so really, what we're doing for these partners is building websites for them. And then on the back end of those websites, kind of plugging in some technology that allows us to kind of track and get some more specifics on what's actually going on in those websites and really kind of looking into what can we do to make sure that when people are searching for these products online, that our partners' websites are the first things that are going to be popping up. So rather than most of your average marketing companies are just going to focus on the sales aspect or the online marketing or the building technology infrastructure, we actually are able to focus on all three. So it kind of separates us a little bit in terms of where we are in the industry, which is great. But overall, like you mentioned, Vin, companies growing like crazy, which is always a really good thing in terms of being an employee and being able to be presented with a lot of growth opportunity. And the craziest thing about it is that we've only been around since 2000. So in just 16 years, we've been able to grow up to over 3,000 employees. We have a huge campus in Charlotte, actually 2 locations in Charlotte, and just a lot of good things happening right now. And it's a very exciting time to be part of the company.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So Dave, when did you join Red Ventures?
Actually, I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary on the 12th of October. So in this amount of time, I was actually able to start in our sales environment. And so I was kind of working my way in there for a few months and then started to go through our floor lead program, which is essentially what will take you eventually to a management role within sales. And about that time that I started going through that program, I saw that there was an opening for campus recruiting, and I actually did that for 4 years out of school after graduation. And so it made me think, well, this could be a good opportunity for me to get involved in something that I know and love and I'm really passionate about, while also being able to bring a lot of value to the organization that way. So one of the things and pieces of advice I always give to students is do something you love, do something you're passionate about, and do something that keeps you engaged in the company that you work for. And sales was definitely doing that for me. And then I thought, I think that someone like me who has a huge passion and is able to talk about Red Ventures, I found myself going home and talking to my wife ad nauseum about Red Ventures and all the fun I was having and the opportunities that I was being presented with. And it kind of made sense that that person, the cheerleader so to speak, or brand ambassador, is the person who should be doing some recruiting for you. So it made sense for me to go ahead and move into that role.
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful fit. I know you and I've spent time together since our relationship and partnerships come together, and I'm with you. The half a dozen times that I've spent on campus, you walk away with just this energy and enthusiasm for Red Ventures and the organization. So I definitely see the similarities, right? Sales, growing
Mhm.
your business, but also going out and selling the organization to folks that would want to join. So you've been here 12 months. Columbus Day is a year, so congratulations, almost.
Thank you.
Tell me about the last 12 months because just knowing Red Ventures like we've come to know you all, but also reading and watching you all grow. The last 12 months have been that hockey stick growth that every mid to larger stage company is going through that they wish they could go through. They're envious. What's it like to work at Red Ventures when you're going through that kind of just massive scaling?
Well, it's very exciting to say the least. What's really nice about it is, Red Ventures is a company of opportunity, not only for its employees but for the partnerships that we have as well. And so, we're always kind of taking a look at the landscape and saying, where can we break into next? We cover a lot of industries, like I mentioned before, with insurance and telco and satellite services and financial services and all kinds of things. And there's no reason why we can't break it in some other markets as well. So we're really kind of playing around with a lot of that right now, which is really exciting and opens up a lot of different avenues and areas for us to kind of grow and find out where our niche is within certain environments. And so that's one thing that's super exciting. We have a lot of new buildings and things like that, and some new structural changes to the campus. So our fourth building just went up. We have 3 buildings already, but this fourth building that they just finished the exterior of is larger than the 3 that we had all combined. So that's wonderful and exciting. We're going to be able to employ a lot of people in Charlotte with that new building, and so being able to put some jobs into the South Carolina and North Carolina market, as well as providing a good experience for people who come to work for us too, I think is all very exciting. But at the end of the day, when you're with a company like this, that the last 12 months has been insane, and not to mention the last 16 years really with Red Ventures has just been permanent growth after growth after growth. It really kind of puts you in this mindset of I'm in the right place. My company's going places, and this is just a really exciting time to be a part of it. I think that employees have been saying this for years, that I'm on the ground floor of Red Ventures and what it will become one day, and I think it's so funny. Here we are 16 years later, and we're still growing, and I still very much feel like that. I feel like I'm on the ground floor of something that 5-6 years from now is going to be larger than we can even imagine. So it's really exciting.
Yeah. No, I understand what you mean, and to have spent time with you and your colleagues when Christian and I were out there just a month or two ago, we walked away, and it's what struck us is the very diverse group of individuals, right? Your organization does not look and feel the same one person to the next, but the consistency of an understanding of this mission and just utter and complete buy-in and to the vision. It's just this amazing culture that Red Ventures has built from top down and bottom up. Can we talk a little? I love to spend more time talking about that because you know the mission of Game Plan is to help student athletes as they go through their journey in through both as an undergraduate and then out into the real world, which is a big jump. And you've hired student athletes from us, but it's the culture that we hear time and time again that's one of the major attractions to Red Venture. Can you, what is it like to work there? What's it like to get up in the morning and go to Red Ventures, and what do you see?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I appreciate you saying that any interaction you've had with our campus and our employees has been positive, and I think that that's something that I try to do every single day as a hiring manager, walking into an interview and saying, okay, can you do the job? Wonderful, but can you do the job here? Is an entirely different question, and I think that it becomes a much more important question when employers start asking that where we have a brand to protect, and that's my job number one as a hiring manager and as a college recruiter, and just a recruiter in general. I want to make sure that my company is the right fit for an employee, and the employee is the right fit for my company as well. And a lot of times that boils down to culture. And to have a state-of-the-art facility and to be able to provide an amazing job with lots of opportunities is one thing, but being able to fill that industry and that company with good people is quite a different thing, and I think that that's the forefront of our focus at all times. But to answer your question, what does the culture look like here? I always tell people, this is just my personal story. I actually live an hour away from work, so I live in Gastonia, North Carolina, and I commute all the way to Fort Mill, South Carolina, which is where our headquarters is, but really what we call our South Charlotte office. And so it takes me about an hour to get to work every day, and then it takes me another hour to get home. What's funny about it is Charlotte traffic can be pretty bad in the morning, so I actually will leave the house about quarter to seven, and so about 6:45 I get in the car, and I'm here by about 7:45. So I get here very early. Most of our days start at 9:15. So I get here, pretty early. Usually, if I'm lucky, I'll make it here 7:45 and start my day, and I'll stay till 6 o'clock. And I think that I don't tell that story to brag about how much harder I work or anything like that, because I don't think I work harder than anybody. I think everybody here works very hard. But I tell that story to illustrate the point that I'm willing to put an extra 2 hours in my day to get back and forth to work and to come in early. Because it's a company that I love, and I think that's kind of rare to find in today's time, that you're going to find somebody who really wants to add 2 hours in their day to get to work. I think it's like, yeah, you know what, I'll be miserable and spend a 15-minute commute. But for me, it makes more sense to go to a company that I love. And I think that another thing that's cool about our culture and our environment is that we have about 3,000 people or so that work here, and I would like to think of us all as salespeople. So salespeople generally, pretty excited, pretty lofty in terms of just their general nature and saying hi, and so a lot of high-fiving, a lot of smiling, a lot of just being personable. And I think that whether you're looking at our actual salespeople, and so if I could put it this way, if you were to line up 5 of our salespeople, 5 of our software engineers, 5 of our business analysts, and 5 of our senior leadership people, you would not be able to tell who's a salesperson and who's not. That's just the kind of person that we hire, and that I think, again, going back to our culture, that's how we're doing our hiring. Is we don't want somebody who's going to be unexcited, or somebody who's going to come to work and just do their job and keep their head down and not say hello to anybody or anything like that. We want the person who's walking around saying hi to people, who's high-fiving, who's shooting Nerf guns at people, and no matter what role or position that you play at Red Ventures, we want you to be a part of the team, essentially. And I think that especially in working with student athletes, that's a big piece of it, right? Everyone has a piece, call it basketball, whether you're playing forward, center, point guard, whatever it may be. Your role is on the team is a very different thing than your actual position. And so I think that whether you're riding the bench or you're in the game or anything else, you have a responsibility to your team to be a team player and to be somebody who's keeping the pace up and keeping your team excited about being there. So
Yeah, and thanks for bringing up that point. When we spent time most recently as we were building out some of the learning courses with you and your colleagues, and we built through the diversity through performance module, which we're really excited to come out, which will be released later this month. One of the things that struck me, and it was really consistent across all shapes and sizes within your team, the term performance just shined through.
yeah,
Diversity is just part of the culture.
but diversity without performance is kind of a waste of time. And so when we were talking, and I felt like I was at home, because when you think about a college athletic team that we're working so closely with, there's more diverse than a women's basketball team, right? A women's young ladies playing 18 to 22-year-old young ladies coming from playing with 12 other girls, and they're from around the country, all different walks of life and colors and perspectives, and maybe playing for a female coach, maybe playing for a male coach, maybe playing for a female assistant coach, maybe playing for a male assistant. There's nothing more diverse than what a college student athlete gets thrown into, but it's all defined through performance. If those teams don't mesh, if they don't win, they're looked at poorly, right? And there's changes that will be made. That felt a lot like what was going on at Red Ventures, and that was awesome to see. It was just seeing it come out in motion, and it's what you're saying. It really was. It was inspirational when just spending the time with folks. And as you said, we didn't just interview your leadership team. It was up and down, and it was very obvious that your mission's been codified throughout the organization. It's very, very purposeful. Yeah. So yeah, congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, and definitely performance is a huge piece of our culture. We generally attract pretty competitive people, not only for our sales, but again, because pretty much anybody at Red Ventures can do another job at Red Ventures, which is why there's a lot of internal growth as well. But at the end of the day, performance and competition is just kind of where we are at an individual mindset. And so, we give a lot of different areas to, kind of exercise that. So we have different games and things like that are always set up, like, ping pong and air hockey and pool and bowling and things like that. But, on the sales force specifically, we have different things that you'll see. There's like rankings for, who has the most sales for that day and things like that. Even on the hiring team, we have this board that we have up. It's all digital, and it basically tells us how we're doing on hiring and how many people we have to hire and where they need to go and all that kind of stuff. And it really keeps us in that competitive mindset and keeps us motivated and going. So it's a big piece of it.
Yeah, and from our experience, athletes like feedback. They stack rank themselves, even if the coaches don't do it. They're doing it themselves, and having a perspective where you stand is great. And if that's the culture they're moving into the workforce, there's a strong fit, right? That quote unquote fit.
Right.
But so you just slid in bowling alley. So Game Plan has a bowling alley that's like down the street where we can go from time to time. Your bowling alley is a little different. It's more like in the basement. So
yeah.
When you're saying you have nice facilities, that is the understatement of all understatements. What is it like to have a basketball court that the Hornets work out at from time to time, and Steph Curry comes in and gets some shooting in? For an old guy that played college basketball a long time ago, that's pretty cool. What's it like on a daily basis just to go peek into the courts?
Yeah, I'll be the first to admit I'm probably not the most active guy in terms of working out the way I should and stuff like that. But nonetheless, we have the facility for it. So Red Ventures has three buildings that are occupied right now and that we work out of, and then we just finished the fourth, like I mentioned earlier. But all of these buildings have different amenities in them. Building 3 has a big food court as well as our bowling alley. The bowling alley, 6 lanes. We have 2 that are dedicated to just free bowling, and then the rest of them are actually dedicated to games. But next to the bowling alley is actually all of our kind of free workout space. So we do a bunch of classes here, whether it be jiu-jitsu or cycling or spin or yoga, meditation, all kinds of stuff like that. It's all free. We have people who work here that want to lead that, and if there's certain things that we don't have somebody who works here that is capable of leading a class like spin or something like that, we'll bring somebody in from the outside to do that. So that's really cool. Once a year, that's a huge part of our health and wellness fair, and so we kind of get people signed up to do a bunch of different things as it relates to like different workouts that they can get involved in and things like that too. The rumor is with building 4 that we will get some tennis courts, but we're kind of crossing our fingers at this point, and we'll see what happens. But that's the rumor anyway. The food court is great too. I always got to do a plug for the food court because it's not like you're eating food, and I think Vin, you've had the food, but it's not food that's been prepared 3 days ago and was brought over, and you got a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that's been cellophane wrapped, and that's what you're paying for. With us, we actually use these 4 or 5-star restaurant chefs that are owned and operated within Charlotte, and we bring some of those chefs over to us, and we have them cook. So you're not talking about, like I mentioned before, the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You're talking about jalapeno mahi and fried chicken with macaroni and cheese and stuff like that. So actually good food and some healthy options and some not so healthy options too, if that's how you want to do it. Sometimes that's how I do it. Building 2, like you mentioned, we have the basketball court, the indoor track, the fitness facility. So we have everything, your free weights, your machines, your ellipticals, treadmills, all that kind of stuff. And then obviously we have an area for showers and people like to come to work early and then do the workout, shower, and get ready here. And so a lot of people will do that. And then building 2 has our bistro, and so bistro has a lot of the same food as the food court, but they also have a couple different options too, like pizza, and then we do a smoothie bar and espresso bar and all that kind of stuff too. And you can go to Starbucks and spend $4 on an espresso drink, or you can come here and spend $1. So that's kind of nice too. It's all pretty heavily subsidized. And then one of the coolest benefits and features of the campus that I think gets looked over quite a bit is we actually have a doctor's office on site. And so we have a full-time doctor. He's here 9 to 6, and a couple nursing staff as well. And really kind of helps you out if you don't want to necessarily take a day or a half day off of work to go to the doctor and submit a $10 or more copay or anything like that. Ours is just $5. You go in there, pay your $5. They can do pretty much anything that you would do at an urgent care. So if you need a prescription filled or you're not feeling well, we do flu shots, all kinds of stuff like that. So it's just really convenient and easy. And then the 4th building, like I mentioned before, there's the Roomers right now, but the Roomers again are the tennis courts, and then I've heard for the ladies a nail salon, and for the guys a barber shop. So we'll see how all that plays out. But those are the speculations at the moment.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
I remember when I first visited, I was walking by your basketball court, which we're not talking about, CYO 8th grade, duck in the ceiling basketball court. This is an unbelievably gorgeous facility. And this 6'5", 6'6" guy shooting the ball around, I'm thinking, man, he can shoot. And then I looked back over, and it was Matt Carroll, who was playing for the Hornets at the time. And I'm thinking, well, that's not something you see every day. And then as I was getting the tour, and I saw, Rick Elias's office a little bit later, Rick's office actually overlooks the basketball court. And then I hear that he actually steps out and heckles some of the guys playing every once in a while. I'm thinking, well, that's kind of my environment. That's a fun place to be. So it's a good segue.
Oh, yeah.
So your leadership, they understand the performance, and I fully believe, just knowing these guys a little bit, that the reason that they've invested so heavily into not just the facilities but the culture and the outlets, for example, like a basketball court, it permeates through them, right? It's really part of them. What is your leadership? How do you see the leadership and the direction they're taking Red Ventures, and how are they ingrained in the organization? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, we're obviously a very performance-based environment, and I think all of that is from Rick, right? So he's probably the most competitive person at the company, and I think that's an important thing, right? Where your CEO is all about taking some risks and kind of seeing how things pan out and just keeping that competitive spirit alive. And I wouldn't necessarily describe him or our CMO Dan as being cautious. I would say that they're definitely the people who are going to be very competitive and making sure that they have great performance as well. But more than that, if I had to kind of sum up our senior leadership in one word, I'd say it's present. The nice thing about Rick and Dan is that you don't have to feel like they're in a different world, and they're not reachable. These guys are going to be everywhere, right? They're getting lunch when you're getting lunch, they're getting coffee when you're getting coffee, and they're not afraid to have a conversation with you about what's going on and just chatting with you. I think that we have a really large spirit of transparency here. All of our rooms at Red Ventures, all of our meeting spaces are all glass, and that's on purpose. We want the spirit of transparency to be here. It's why we do our monthly all-employee meetings where everyone's invited to hear about where the company's going and what are the next moves we're making and things like that. And I think that, the biggest thing, and giving Rick a plug here, Rick actually did a TED Talk back in the day. He was on the flight that went down in the Hudson. They just finished the movie Sully about it. But he does this TED Talk. It's phenomenal. It's called the 3 Things I Learned While My Plane Was Crashing. And that entire talk is about, the things that you learn when you think that you've squandered your opportunities. And that story is really the story of the culture at Red Ventures. The idea that people are not a commodity, that people are people, and we need to invest in them, and we need to make sure that our employees are growing and developing and being offered opportunities and being encouraged to seize those opportunities. And I think that that's a huge part of the company and the culture and our leadership in general. And I think that you mentioned a lot of their traits kind of permeating down, and I think that that's very similar to our sales leadership and our analyst leadership and our software leadership. They all try to exhibit those same qualities of, investing in people, spending some time to get to know your employees, coach them, train them, develop them. It's all very important to us.
Yeah, term present, that was apparent. They're in the mix. They lead from up front for sure. And the TED Talk is incredibly powerful. If you haven't had the chance to do it, Rick Elias, Elias, please Google it. It's a wonderful 5 minutes to spend. He's not just a wonderful speaker, but the story is so unique and so touching. And particularly the way he relates it everyone can walk away feeling a little bit better about a little different perspective about life and certainly business. Let's talk a little bit about the types of careers that young students would, when I say young students, college students would see at Red Ventures. What type of opportunities Red Ventures offer for that intern, or as we've talked quite a bit about, the recent graduate?
Sure. I think starting with the internships, obviously as a junior, it's a great time to start getting your feet wet, and I think that it's kind of funny, as a society, we're expecting 18, 19-year-olds to figure out what they want to do for the rest of their lives, and getting them involved in a major and things like that, and really you're not really getting too much work experience until an internship, and that may make or break a lot of things for you. Speaking personally, I went to University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and was a marine biology major, and did my internship my junior year, and was doing a lot of I was in an office, but I was doing a lot of recruiting and things like that, and found out this is my calling. This is what I love to do, and I think that that's a big piece of your junior years, is really getting some experience and saying this is what I love, and figuring that out, because sooner than later, I think is a good practice with that. But for our internships, we do a couple different ones. One for software engineers and one for our business analysts or associates. And so really with that, the software engineers, really anything that you're doing at Red Ventures as an intern, you can expect a different kind of internship experience. You're not going to be doing the work that other people don't want to do. You're not going to be getting coffee for people. You're expected to be just as if that person is. So, our software engineering interns are going to be just like our software engineers. They're going to be doing the same work. They're going to get some mentorship, very similar. Same with the analysts. We expect our analyst interns to come in knowing, okay, these are the properties of search engine optimization and paid search and analytics, and you can fully expect to be running multi-million-dollar campaigns and presenting on your research and being in front of a group of sales leaders and saying, hey, this is the work that I did, and this is where I think we should go. And that's our internship experience. Unfortunately, we can't facilitate a sales internship just because we work with a lot of partners, and we're taking social security numbers and credit card numbers and things like that. So it gets a little dicey, legally to have interns come in. But this summer, I'm actually leading a charge on what we're calling a sales summit. So it'll actually be like a 3-day internship conference type experience where we'll bring people in, teach them our sales process, and do a lot of role plays, get them some exposure to some senior leadership and things like that. So we're really excited about that opportunity. But for the seniors, one of the most popular jobs that we have is for our inside sales representatives. The nice thing about Red Ventures is that there's obviously no shortage of people that want to work here. So let's just be really, again, going back to the competitiveness, let's just be really selective with who we're taking in. We've been on the Charlotte Business Journal's top 10 list of places to work in Charlotte for the last 8 years now, and we've taken the #1 spot a few times, and they're, I believe, voting in November, and hopefully we take the #1 spot again here. But it's nice when you're being recognized as a company that's giving those opportunities. But going back to the inside sales role, a lot of students will graduate and start in that environment, and I honestly recommend it. It's very different than your average sales experience. It's the one I started in, as opposed to most sales jobs and companies where you're going to start, by cold calling and networking and prospecting, going door to door, making a fool of yourself in public, trying to, scramble people down and talk to them. Ours is very different. Obviously, I mentioned before, we build websites for these partners, and what's happening is customers are going to go online to, if it's Verizon, and they're going to find a phone number on that website to call in and get more information or to buy. And when they call that number, that's when they're going to get connected to a sales representative at Red Ventures. And so you can imagine, as a sales representative, you're taking inbound phone calls from people that are actually wanting to hear about what you're selling, which totally changes the game of sales in general. It's not a 100% guaranteed sale every time, of course, right? So people are going to be shopping around. They're going to be giving you all kinds of excuses, like they might need to talk to their spouse, or they don't have money in the bank today, things like that, right? So it's our job as sales agents to hear those objections and overcome them, right? So I wouldn't classify us as super aggressive by any means, but we definitely want to attempt to overcome some hesitation before we're just letting somebody off the hook. I think it's what separates us. Obviously all of these companies have their own internal sales forces, and we're able to outsell them anywhere between 40 and 400%. So that's the competition that we keep between each of our partners is, we're gonna do our best to outsell you, and that's not a challenge that we've ever lost. So that's good for us. A couple of the other roles that might be of interest to students coming right out of school. One would be for software engineers. So that role is very collaborative. So we want to put you on a team that you have lots of different people who are experts in several different coding languages, such as Python or Ruby or CSS or C# or HTML, all kinds of different things. And so wherever you fall within that spectrum, we want to get you working underneath that person, sort of like an apprenticeship of who has the most experience and who's the most knowledgeable in that language, and then also give you some exposure to some of these other languages and let you try a lot of things as it relates to building software or building front end or user interface, all kinds of things like that. So if that's something that you really feel called to do, I think this is a great environment for that in terms of getting the knowledge and on-the-job training and coaching and things like that. And for our associates, that's a pretty competitive role for us too, going along with sales and the software engineering. But basically, our analysts are coming from very analytical backgrounds, such as accounting, finance, actuarial science, things like that. And these are people that love data and numbers and crunching data, splicing it up several different ways, and really seeing what these numbers are saying. And then what we're doing ultimately is finding out better ways to do our marketing through that role. So, what do we need to change with regards to tags on our websites to make sure that those are pulling up first when Googled for, and things like that. So it's very technical based. It's not your average advertising or PR campaigns or anything like that. This is really technical stuff that we're doing here, which is great. And then, but really, I do a lot of our hiring for sales. I think this year alone, we'll probably hire in the neighborhood of 700 new college grads for those various roles, whether it be software or analyst or sales. Many of them will go into sales. Probably 90% of them will go into sales, which is going to be exciting because with sales, again, it's very competitive to get into that role. But you can imagine once you get in there, there's a lot of opportunity for growth, whether it be in sales management or leadership or through our Master Sales Agent program as well. So a lot of good perks for that too. If you're a money motivated person and you're very competitive and you like a lot of opportunity, sales is a great environment here.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, the different tracks are clear and distinct and appeal to so much, and you put the culture on top of it. It's no wonder why. But 700 individuals is significant. What's your day like? I mean, how many campus do you visit on an annual basis? As you said, you've transitioned out of sales, and in some respects, it's certainly sales because at 700, that's quite a quota. What does that look like for you? It's got to be a road show.
Yeah, it's I was actually joking today. This is actually my first full day back in the office since September 12th. So I've been on the road for the last few weeks here, but which I love that life. That's part of who I am and what I enjoy doing. But I think what's cool about it is we have about 15 different core schools that we work with. That there's 2 college recruiters for sales individually, and then there's a couple more college recruiters that deal with our sales support roles, which are the analyst roles and the software roles. And but for me personally, hiring for the sales, Allie Garcia is our other college recruiter. Her and I travel between these 15 schools, and we do a lot of things. So it's all business development. So really at the end of the day, doing a career fair is just small potatoes for us. That's a great way to meet students and get the brand out there and stuff like that. But the difference between, I think, Red Ventures and any other company that visits the campus is we're not really there to sell the organization. We're not there to go in front of your business course and spend the first 10 minutes of that class talking to you about the company and the opportunities. We're going to be there and we're going to be presenting in your classroom and teaching you the sales process and doing some role plays with you and things like that. So it's very different. At the end of the day, like I said before, it's one thing if you want to work for Red Ventures. I think that's wonderful. And that's frankly my job is to get people interested in working at Red Ventures and take them through the hiring process. But at the end of the day, there are some people who are going to love our environment and other people who are like, yeah, I'm not as competitive, and that's okay. My job as a hiring manager on the back end is to kind of help you figure out where the next step is. And so I always offer that as a piece of just being me. At the end of the day, I love to provide advice. I like to see myself in that role. And so I've had several talks with students who have absolutely zero interest in sales, but just need some help with their resume or need some advice on how to get in front of an employer and go through an interview and what are some good practices there. And I've done all of that. You just had off the books conversations with these people and connect with them on LinkedIn and things like that. And I think that's an important part of a company too is, there's a lot of employers out there and recruiters who, if you're not interested, they're kind of done with you and they're like, yeah, you're just a waste of my time now. And I think it's not a really good way to look at your job. I think you have a responsibility, given what you know as a hiring manager and as a recruiter, to help these kids find out where they should go in life. And I think that's something that Al and I really try to do. So that's a big piece of it. But we meet obviously with a lot of career center staff, set up meetings there, find out some events and things like that we can do and sponsor a lot of things. We'll go into classrooms like I mentioned. We meet with athletic departments as well, meet with student athletes. I'm actually going to be in South Carolina next Monday and meeting with a bunch of student athletes and talk to them about some opportunities at Red Ventures, but also trying to figure out where they'd like to be and try to see what I can do to help them figure that out too. So it's an exciting life and we're busy constantly, which is good. I like to keep that lifestyle.
Yeah, no, I think what you just described there says so much. One, it's a small world, so even though the student might not be the right fit for Red Ventures, it's you're still representing the Red Ventures brand, and that's powerful. Two, you're not just going to career services where you're going to where the students are. You're going to where, from your standpoint, the candidates are. And thanks for the plug on the student athlete piece. One of the aspects that we look at very in a similar way, even though Game Plan is a software company, we value our relationships in the athletic department so much. We want to bring out for example, a podcast series so that the administration and the stakeholders of the student athlete learn more about Red Ventures. But we also want to connect dots. If you're on campus and you're literally a block away from the athletic department, you have an opportunity to connect with the local folks in the life skills or in the academic advising or even a coach or two. Gosh, that just makes too much sense. Take advantage of those opportunities, and that's something we're really excited for. So, and you guys have been wonderful to work with because you're so invested around the student athlete, and that's clear. So another good segue. When you think about a student athlete, and I know you and we've had these philosophical conversations, but what comes to mind? Not just student athlete. We're not talking Heisman Trophy, or All-American. We're talking more the individual that's gonna make the transition to Red Ventures. And so, what characteristics of the student athlete? What traits of the student athlete come to mind when you start thinking about that from an employability standpoint?
Yeah, I think whether it be a student athlete or whoever, no matter what role you're going into at Red Ventures, but particularly the sales environment, we need you to be coachable. We need you to take advice and take it well, and it's okay to fail. It's okay to do a bad job, and it's okay to make a mistake and things like that. But when your manager or whoever comes to you and says, or it could be a teammate, comes to you and says, hey, I think this is a great way to improve. I think that the mistake was made, but here's how we get better. I think that's a huge piece to say, wow, that's great advice, and I'm going to go ahead and implement that right away. And a lot of times at Red Ventures, that's happening on things that you're doing well too. So, our performance managers who oversee our sales teams will pull agents into one-on-one coachings and say, wow, you were doing a great job closing. And I think that even to sharpen that, this is something that I might start doing on each call. And then it's expected when you're getting that advice and that coaching to say, you know what, that's a great idea. I'm going to go ahead and do this. The nice thing about Red Ventures is that whoever's coaching you has done your job before, and they were doing it well. So you're getting advice from people who know what they're talking about, as opposed to, bringing in a bunch of external hires who may or may not understand the exact day-to-day. You're talking to people who know, which is really cool. So definitely being able to be coached is a huge piece of that. The next thing I'd say is adaptability. So Red Ventures has a lot of change that happens quite frequently. We change things up all the time, whether that be partners that we're working with or where you're sitting physically when you come into work, or I've been on our hiring team now for about 9 months, and we've moved physical locations like 3 times. So, but being able to be adaptable, you might be moved around on teams, and you have different managers and stuff like that, and it's always just nice to have somebody who's like, you know what, change is good, and this is a good move, and not dragging your feet and having a bad attitude about it, but just saying, yeah, this is new and this is great. So that's a huge piece of it too, is just being adaptable and flexible with our environment. And then the last thing I'd say is just patience. And I think that student athletes have this a lot, right? And I think that it's a trait of a student athlete that is pretty commonly overlooked. I think that when you're talking about student athletes, things that come to mind most common are competitiveness and performance and coachability and stuff like that. But really, patience is such a huge part of it, right? And I remember, back in high school and in college as well, I swam competitively, and there were some strokes that I did really well, and then there were other strokes that I really had to take some time to perfect and learn and things like that. And I was a medley swimmer, which means you swim all 4 strokes in one race. And the breaststroke, for whatever reason, it was hard for me to figure out the timing and the rhythm to that. And I think that over time, I took a lot of coaching, I did a lot of extra practice, and really kind of was able to bear down and say, okay, this is what I need to do, these are the changes I need to make, and not getting frustrated with not being able to go as fast as I wanted or to have the stroke that I wanted, but really being able to say, okay, today's a new day, I'm going to make the next step, and I'm going to improve here and improve there and all that. And I was ultimately able to do that. And I think that's the same thing in the environment of sales or software engineering or whatever. Having the mindset that says, I'm not going to be perfect at this day one, and that's okay. I'm going to grow in this experience, and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to take some coaching, and I'm going to come in early, and I'm going to shadow some people, and I'm going to see what they're doing to be successful. And I'm really going to give this my all, because this is something I'm really taken to heart and I'm proud of. And I think that's a really good attitude to keep when you come into to work anywhere, but particularly at Red Ventures.
Yeah, it's wonderful advice. We often we deal with the student athlete through their journey, and what we talk with them about often is this journey is so transferable into the workforce. The challenge is you're dealing with an 18 to 22-year-old that doesn't have the experience of looking forward to understand what the workforce really represents. And the stories you just shared, the very, very tangible. We just talked about the swimming. Erica, who runs our college athletic department business, she was a distance swimmer, a big time swimmer at Purdue, and I joke around with her, how many hours, how many miles did you swim just staring at the bottom of the pool? How boring must that be to have no other context other than looking at a really dark blue line at the bottom of a pool? And when you think about that, what that represents, the discipline that builds, and how that could be transferred to becoming patient in a software engineering team, it's all it's everything, right? And and we all I joke because I talk in analogies frequently, but they're valuable. Student athletes, I frequently call them like the emergency room doctor, where the ER doc is seeing the 13-year-old soccer player that just sprained their ankle. The next patient just had a heart attack. The next patient just went into labor. None of those are similar, so they constantly have to change gears. The student athlete gets up in the morning, they have to go to morning workouts, and then they have to go to class, and then they have to go to lunch, and then they have meetings, and then they have practice, and then they have to go to strength and conditioning, and then they have to go to study hall. None of those are similar, right? They're constantly changing gears. And so when we're trying to bring that to life in front of an 18 to 22-year-old, having you just share that means a lot. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
As we're moving to wrap up here, in your own words, and this has been wonderful. You put great context around Red Ventures and of who they are and what they do, the culture, the opportunities. Thank you very much about spending the time specifically around the student athlete experience. What 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 advice, generally speaking, would you offer our young student athletes as they're thinking about making this transition and potentially contemplating looking at a Red Ventures? How would they look and get in touch, and what advice would you offer them?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of that is, as a senior getting ready to graduate, looking into companies, don't chase a responsibility, don't chase a paycheck, chase a company. Chase a company that is growing, chase a company that's going to give back to you, chase a company that's going to invest in you as a person. And I think that's the biggest piece of advice I give anybody.
Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah, it's kind of like in the recruiting scene. A lot of people have been burned by chasing a coach, but when they look at the campus and they buy into the university, how wonderful an experience that is. You buy into the brand of Red Ventures. Every person I've talked with that works there, you included, they're bought in, and goodness knows if you don't like the weather, wait 15 minutes because the opportunities are in front of you. So it's wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
Dave, so thank you so much for your time today. It was wonderful. It's a great way to start the academic school year. I know you're often sprinting for recruiting and you're busy as can be. So thanks for taking the time. And just to make sure everyone is aware, and we'll have this out in front of all of our student athletes, but you certainly can find Red Ventures on the internet, redventures.com. They're obviously located in Game Plan's platform as well in the career marketplace. But Dave, thank you so much for joining us today, and appreciate all of your time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vin.